So we finally got a reveal for Marvel Avengers at Square Enix's conference at E3 this year, but we only actually got to see a cinematic CG trailer, and you couldn't really get a sense of how the game would play or what this game would actually be. There were a lot of rumors about it being a multiplayer game, and it seemed that those rumors were actually confirmed as the developers came up on stage and started talking about things like games as a service, confirming that you'd be able to play with up to 4 other players, free content drops over the next several years, started talking about no loot boxes, no pay to win mechanics, that kind of thing. And as they were talking about this, alarm bells were going off in my head shouting, warning, warning, warning. So I came out of Square Enix's conference a little bit sort of disappointed and just generally not feeling so great about Marvel's Avengers. Well, over the last several days, obviously I've been researching the game, listening to interviews and feedback given from the developers, as well as people that got to see the game hands-on, got to see it actually played, got to see some gameplay. And I've got to say that having watched all these interviews and listened to feedback, now I'm not so worried. And in this video, I wanted to talk about why I am cautiously optimistic about Marvel's Avengers and why my opinion has kind of changed. So let's start off by talking about the game itself. And the first thing that really sort of made me very happy and reassured me was the actual main story campaign, which it has been confirmed will be a purely single player experience, and this will be completely separate from the multiplayer. It will be very heavy story focused. It will involve a deep narrative, and what makes me most happy is you do not actually need to be online to play it. It will involve an entirely new and original storyline, which basically starts off at the beginning of the game on A-Day, Avengers Day. The Avengers, specifically Tony Stark, are unveiling a new experimental form of technology. Stuff goes wrong. A heist takes place as Taskmaster and his minions try to steal this technology. This results in a huge explosion. Apparently seems to kill Captain America. San Francisco is completely rocked, civilians die, and the shit just basically goes wrong. We then skip to 5 years later, and the Avengers have splintered. They are pretty much rudderless and guilt-ridden, and we pick up with our heroes there as we carry on the story and obviously have a look at how this affects our different heroes themselves. What has me extremely excited was the star cast of voice actors that will be playing our beloved heroes. So Nolan North will be taking on Tony Stark's Iron Man. Now, if you don't know, Nolan North is most famous for having played Nathan Drake from the Uncharted series. Troy Baker will be taking on Bruce Banner's Hulk. He's a very famous voice actor. He's done so many different voices, from Joker in Batman's Arkham Origins to Sam Drake in Uncharted to most famously Joel in The Last of Us. We then have Laura Bailey, who will be playing Black Widow. She's most famous for her role as Nadine in Uncharted, and of course Kate Diaz in Gears 4 and Gears 5. Jeff Shine will be playing Captain America. He hasn't played too many huge roles. Probably the biggest role he played was Danny Burke in Mafia 3. And then finally, rounding out the group of heroes will be Travis Willingham, who will be playing Thor. He played Wilson Fisk in Spider-Man, and he has actually voice acted Thor in a lot of the animated cartoons and movies. So he has a lot of experience playing Thor. This is an incredibly star-studded cast of voice actors. The fact that they are connected to the game makes me extremely happy. It makes me feel a lot more confident that we're actually going to get a really, really good story campaign. So how does the gameplay actually work? Do you play as one character throughout the main story? Well, actually, throughout the campaign, the developers have said that you will play the character that progresses the story forward. So there was a behind closed door walkthrough of the first mission, which basically showed all of the gameplay combined with the different cinematics that we got to see in the trailer. Now, why they didn't just show this to the public is absolutely beyond me, because I think if they had showed this to the Republic, it probably would have reassured a lot of people. But from what people have been saying about it, from having watched the walkthrough, the combat looks extremely fun, and you actually get to play as each of the Avengers throughout this sequence. So you will move to different Avengers at different points, depending on what's happening with the story. You actually start off as Thor, and each of the Avengers themselves handle very, very differently. So Thor, think Kratos when you think of Thor. He basically throws his hammer and can call it back. He has lightning abilities, and you can actually pin your enemies to the wall with your hammer, at which point then you would switch to, punches and melee combat. Very, very similar to Kratos in God of War. We then move to Iron Man, who moves very much like a javelin in Anthem. Of course, from Iron Man, you'd be expecting to see the usual attacks. So he has laser attacks. You can shoot lasers out of your hands. You have this arc beam, which comes from his arc reactor in his chest. Maybe this is like a super move or something like that. We then move to Hulk, who is this huge powerhouse. He can pick up enemies, throw enemies around. At one point, supposedly, he picks up 2 enemies and smashes them together. Of course, you can jump up in the air, and he has his Hulk smash, which we do get to see in the cinematic trailer, where he's coming down and throwing like a huge truck or a tank. And apparently he also has his sonic boom attack when he claps his hands together, causing a huge sonic boom and pushing enemies back. We then move to Captain America, and obviously Cap is militarily trained. So of course he's got his shield, which you can throw and ricochet off of enemies. You can also punch the shield, which will create a sonic attack. And obviously he has his hand-to-hand combat and just looks incredibly sleek and really powerful. And then obviously the final character we get to play as is Black Widow. Now Black Widow is very fast and agile, extremely different to the other Avengers. She relies heavily on gadgets, has 2 pistols which do have ammo, which do recharge over time, and obviously her electric sticks, which she uses. Apparently in the walkthrough, in the actual demo, she takes on Taskmaster on a one-to-one basis. This is kind of like a mini boss battle. They basically said with each of the Avengers, they wanted each of them to feel very different and very unique, and they wanted to get that on the sticks feel. So you feel like you're playing Thor, you feel like you're playing Hulk, that kind of thing. Sounds incredible. It sounds absolutely amazing, and I actually really like the idea of playing as all the different Avengers throughout the story. I think that will keep the gameplay feeling very fresh, very different, very dynamic, and I'm very much up for that. Of course, let's talk about the co-op experience. So you will be able to unlock heroes throughout the campaign, and apparently at key intervals in the main story, certain side missions will open up in the world, which will become available to play online with friends or with random people as well. So this is where you'll be sort of going into your multiplayer element. You can play with up to 4 players, and each player must choose a different Avenger. So you can't have 4 Iron Men on the screen at the same time. So one will have to be Thor, one will have to be Iron Man, and so on and so forth. You will be able to fully customize your character, so you'll have different abilities and of course different skins as well. They have said they're sort of drawing on a 60-year history and lore surrounding the Avengers timeline. So they're looking at the comics, the films, the cartoons, and they're really wanting to sort of draw back on all of that experience. This isn't going to be just based on the films, on the movies. What that means is we should get to see some really cool skins from some sort of older, more obscure comics in the Avengers series. We might even get to see some Avengers that we're not familiar with, and new Avengers to be introduced as the sort of year progresses. So what also has me really excited for Marvel's Avengers is the pedigree that exists in the actual development team. There were 2 people that were sort of talking about it, particularly in some of the interviews and also in the Coliseum interview as well. We've got Sean Askai. He's the creative director at Crystal Dynamics, and he's actually worked on the Uncharted Lost Legacy series previously. So he's very much a story-focused developer. This makes me very happy because it's the story that I'm super interested in, and I want a really, really good story single-player experience. And of course, I'm interested in playing multiplayer as well, but the bread and butter of this game for me needs to be the single-player story. We also have Vincent Napoli. He's actually the lead combat designer, and what has me excited was the fact that he spent 5 years actually working on God of War's combat. So the really amazing combat that we have with Kratos, with his axe and his abilities and how fluid and how amazing that combat felt, he actually worked on that, and he now is come on to Marvel's Avengers and obviously is working to make the combat for each Avenger feel really satisfying and really different. And that makes me really excited, the fact that someone who's worked on something so amazing is now coming across and working on Marvel's Avengers. So let's talk about the game. Is it a games as a service? Well, of course, this question was asked at E3, and I've got to say that the developers were very reticent to use that label. They really didn't want to talk about the fact that it might be a games as a service game, because obviously games as a service previously have notoriously not worked very well, and we've sort of had, the end content, the end product has tended to be quite flat and lacked a lot of bells and whistles, lacked real content, which then gets added in later on. So generally they've not been great in the initial release. So I'm thinking they're trying to sort of veer away from that, but they have said that they do want to continue to support the game with free content drops over the next several years. The first year's roadmap has actually been laid out, and these content drops will include new characters, new regions, and stories. Of course, there's going to be no loot boxes and no pay-to-win mechanics. That has been confirmed, but it is likely we will have some form of microtransaction. Hopefully, these will only be cosmetic in nature. Hopefully, they're not going to affect progression, because that's really when microtransactions can be quite harmful to a game and to the community. So I'm hoping they won't affect progression, and hopefully these microtransactions will simply add additional content rather than having content removed from the base game in order to monetize them at a later point. One very good case in point would be Anthem's armor sets and vinyls, which were very clearly in the base game but were clearly lifted out of it so that they could be monetized to try to force players to buy these. So I'm hoping that we're going to have quite a generous number of skins and abilities that are available for our Avengers, somewhere on par with Spider-Man's PS4. I would be happy with, and then obviously the additional content may be fine if they want to put microtransactions on that. That's fine. That's up to other people to buy it if they want to, but I don't want it to affect the core game. PlayStation 4 owners will actually get exclusive content as well, so they are going to get some new skins, some PS4 exclusive missions. Maybe we'll get some kind of Spider-Man PS4 crossover. That would be really awesome. And PlayStation players will also get early beta access as well when that becomes available. So, Marvel's Avengers, when it first came out and we first heard about it, I was not particularly interested, but based on everything there that I found out about it, particularly that the single player is going to be a completely separate entity to the multiplayer, that it's going to have a really good single player campaign that you can play offline, and then you can jump into the multiplayer as you're playing the single player at bits and bats or at the end of it. That is what I'm happy with that kind of mechanic. And that's kind of what I wanted Anthem to be. I wanted Anthem to have a very good single player experience where you're building up the world, you're building up the lore, the characters and that kind of thing. But then you do have that multiplayer element later if you're wanting to play with your friends. So yeah, Marvel Avengers, I am definitely cautiously optimistic about it, and I will be interested to find out more in the upcoming months. I will absolutely be hoping to get my hands on that early beta access on PlayStation 4, and hopefully I can live stream some of it for you guys and obviously give you my impressions on it when we can actually get hands on. But why Crystal Dynamics and Marvel Games did not release this full gameplay walkthrough is absolutely beyond me. I think had they done that, people would have been much more on board with it at the actual conference, because they could have actually get to see a little bit of what it looks like. So yeah, that's kind of what we know on Marvel Marvel's Avengers. That's why I'm cautiously excited and cautiously optimistic. Hope you guys find this video interesting and informative. Let me know what you guys think of Marvel Avengers. Is it a game you're looking forward to? What are your feelings on it? What are your thoughts on it? Please share in the comment section below. Hope you guys are having a great week. Hope you guys enjoyed E3. Anyway, I'll be back with more E3 content in the upcoming days, so please look forward to that. Take care, and as always, happy gaming. Bye, guys.